Bay Area Military Collectors Association presents Celebration of Military History.
There's a book and there's a battery. The battery needs to be charged. You can put that in the... Huh?
Get your whip fixed when you get knocked out pictures.
I'm going to get the old one fixed.
November 6th through December 11th at the Alameda Museum on Alameda Avenue,
Somebody else did.
1999.
That girl. And when you want to stop, you just hit the red button again.
Welcome to all the veterans on our display of military history from 1776 to the present year of 1999. This is a list of all the fallen soldiers, sailors, and airmen and Marine Corps personnel that participated in World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. What we wanted to do here is start with 1776 with the Revolutionary War, and all we have is a copy of the Constitution and a few little items that depict some things from the Revolutionary War, the American bald eagle, and this plate that shows the two drummers and the man carrying the first U.S. flag. Here we have some military posters from a series that was done in the late 60s depicting some of the uniforms of some of the 1812 and into the 1820s, 1830s uniforms. Was very hard for us to find anything that pertained to those wars, but when we move into the area of the Civil War, we were able to get this nice display that was put on by Al Smith, a resident of Alameda and former Marine Corps corpsman, and he also has some other things here for us today. But these are some lithographs from the Civil War, and this is copy of the Confederate flag and another nice lithograph. And these are some people from Alameda that actually fought in the Civil War. This goes into the Indian Wars, and we have some replicas here of some teepees. They were originally used for the display of some Indian dolls. That's why they're open, but this is a typical type of a teepee, and there's some more of the posters that were done by the United States government showing some of the uniforms of the 1860s, 70s, and into the 1888. And this is an Army lieutenant on the right-hand side with an Army sword of about the same vintage, turn of the century. These uniforms were phased out just prior to World War I, and there are some more pictures on the back side of the wall here. And we also see Remember the Maine. This is a framed picture of the United States ship Maine, which started that particular war, 1898. Remember the Maine. Flag. And this display here is of some headgear and a bayonet of about that same vintage. some of the pith helmets that were United States used in Cuba, and a Marine Corps visored cap that's of the same era, about the turn of the century, and a backpack, Spanish-American War, and there's a Philippine uprising there which only lasted about 5 days. This is a map of Europe in 1921, and a poster of some of the gunboats during the Boxer Rebellion in the 20s. Some of the World War II aircraft. These posters were put on display by Fred Brunn, an Alameda longtime collector of military memorabilia. This is our area where World War I starts, and on the right-hand side is a poster that's a reproduction of the recruiting, join the air service, learn and earn. Then this is Army Lieutenant. The uniform was actually made in France, and it's tailor-made with the riding boots and the riding pants. And this is a sailor from World War I. Notice that the chevrons are on his right arm, not on his left arm, as in World War II. And then this is a map of Europe prior to World War I. And in the display case, there's some memorabilia that was taken off of a battlefield during World War I. Some of these items were taken by a Ferdinand Breslon, a sergeant in the United States Army in France, and the helmets and headgear belong to Sig Robel of Alameda. And then this is a private first class with gas mask, belongs to a collector in Alameda, Larry Perrak. And the one in the corner here is an air crew corporal for ordnance in World War I. Quite a rare type of a tunic, because there weren't that many aircraft in World War I. This biplane here is a biplane that hangs in back to the 40s on Lincoln Avenue, 2406. The plane is for sale. It's there on consignment. Here are two more posters from Fred Brunn. And then this is the display here, memorial to the soldiers and sailors and nurses and so on that participated in World War I. And this display under the glass here is also part of one of our earlier collectors, Al Smith, all World War I memorabilia. The main set here is from a soldier that he has just about everything from the papers, the canteen, the tunic, a gas mask, and so on. And there are some medals here that are also all vintage World War I. Now we move on to the beginning of World War II, and we have a sailor here with a mop, nicknamed the Swabby. And this is a poster of Franklin Delano Roosevelt about the time of 1931, just prior to him being elected to the presidency for the first term. And a Japanese flag, And there's a replica of a Japanese airplane, a Commodore's flag, which is the United States Army, I'm sorry, the United States Navy. And that was a rank that was phased out in the early 50s. There's a Flying Tiger replica leather A2 jacket. And here are some patches. And we also have a display here of some Japanese sailors in an Army helmet. The Philippine Forgotten Heroes. And this is a gentleman that was also in the Navy. Someone's father that is one of the people that have displayed some things. Don Martins, that's his dad, George Martin. And this is a pillow, United States Air Forces, U.S., and a whack. No, I'm sorry, that's a wave. And here's some more pilots' things, Navy patches. And this is another display of one of the people from Alameda, last name DeLong. And here are some Doolittle items. Doolittle was a resident of Alameda, and of course his famous raid left on the Hornet here from Naval Air Station Alameda, 1942. And that is a Medical Corps Brigadier General's flag, and we have a bomber here, the Doolittle type bomber, hanging from the ceiling. Some more memorabilia on the wall here. There's a whack and a World War II Navy flyer in the leathers, which is a winter type uniform, and a poster up here with war bonds, and a drawing of General Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. That is a United States Army engineer flag. And on this side there's another propaganda poster, and this is the famous General George Patton with his famous 6-shooters. And we have a French soldier here and a nurse of the same World War II period. And I'm going to draw back here on this motorcycle, which also belongs to Fred Brunn of Alameda, California, with a mannequin in full dress of a Wehrmacht, which would be Army. And this is a BMW with a sidecar, 1943, vintage, very rare. And we have another pilot here of World War II with the A2 jacket and the Mae West and goggles and helmet and so on, and a Wehrmacht tunic hanging on the background. And the star, this little flag here, if you had someone serving in the military during World War II, you would hang this little banner in your window. And if you had a husband and a son, or 2 sons that were serving, you'd have 2 stars on that banner. If one of those stars should turn to be the color of gold, that would mean that they were killed in action. In this display we have another A2 jacket. This is a display put on by Mark Frost, another resident of Alameda and longtime military collector. Also is involved with reenactment. This is a display of a tanker's jacket and some other memorabilia, things that you would find in one's footlocker, and a German tanker's cap that would be maybe Afrika Korps, And these tanks were made by Jimmy Downs, another resident of Alameda. These are remote control, and these are all models that he put together and painted. And on the top, we have some displays of some of the toys that are coming out for this time period. Christmas 1999, The Ultimate Soldier. And the company actually is headquartered here in Alameda. And in the center here we have an Ike type jacket, Flyers tunic, and that is one of my tunics from my collection. And we just discovered today, just about 10 minutes ago, that this particular Army Air Corps captain won the Silver Star, and I didn't even know that until today. There it is in the upper left. That is Silver Star, and I believe the stars mean battle stars. This is a Russian female uniform dress, and this particular uniform is extremely rare, and it is of the World War II vintage. The hat is of later years, but they do look good together. And this is a female that was in the KGB prior to it being called the KGB. And to the right of this we have what we refer to as the horse soldiers, and these units were still in operation through 1942, and then they were disbanded, and then they started back up again in the European campaign occupation after World War II in the late 1945. And this is a nice display that's put on by this particular organization that is based here in the Bay Area. There's a movie poster of the time period of Casablanca, very famous film. We enter now into some of the British soldiers, sailors, some flags. That's the Australian flag. No, I'm sorry, that's Canadian flag of the World War II vintage, and a British flag. This is a British flag that's a RAF that would fly over an air base, and that is a 1940 Norton motorcycle. This display is put on by Mark Frost of Alameda, and the dispatcher on the mannequin is complete with gloves, holster, helmet, boots, everything. This one is by a collector named Norman. He's also British, and this is of a flyer during the time of Normandy invasion. We have at the top here the 1943 hat from the Australian Army. This hat's been in the owner's collection for over 30 years. Some of our collectors collect tunics, uniforms. Some collect just uniforms. Some collect just medals. Some collect everything like Mark does. Most of us have some mannequins that we can put these uniforms on. In the middle here we have a Canadian sailor, and this particular one is from His Majesty's Canadian ship Columbia, and it's a first-class petty officer. And next to that one is an RAF flyer, and it's a volunteer reserve flyer. And in the case, what we have is the Gurkha, I guess it was a regiment or a battalion that fought in the World War II. Some very rare things that are on display here from a gentleman by the name of Jim. And we have a recruiting poster behind this tunic, United States Air Force, and that would have to be after 1947 when it officially became the U.S. Air Force. And another tunic here of a United States Air Force. We have a cavalry guidon here with the tank on it and crossed sabers. Some more uniforms that are of the Korean vintage, and this whack here is a very rare tunic of a female army, Women's Army Corps. It was only used for a couple of years. It's kind of a grayish, taupish color, and the women really didn't like the color, and therefore it was only around for a couple of years during the Korean War. We have a general's uniform hanging here. This is a two-star general, Major General of the Army in the khakis, quite a few battle ribbons. And we have some more Korean displays here, a medal. And this is Bob Pirak, who was drafted and served in Korea and has a couple of battle stars. This is a typical fatigue jacket of the herringbone style, and the soldier's name was Mills. We don't know the rank. Many times we don't find names in these uniforms, and they're kind of an unknown, but it is nice to know the name and rank and sometimes serial number of all of the uniforms and memorabilia that we collect. These are some displays from Don Martin. He's a resident of Alameda, and he was one of these people that was in 3 different services. He was in the Marine Corps, he was in the Air Force, and he was also in the Army. So he did also a tour of duty in Vietnam, and there are some things here that are from Vietnam. This is a helicopter pilot's helmet from the Vietnam era. Take a good look at that, and then in the background you'll see a display of all the various aircraft that have been used through the years for the United States Air Force. Now this here, something I've never seen before, but this is a urinal that is on board an aircraft. These are some more uniforms here. There's a flak jacket that is of the Vietnam era, and some boots, Foot Locker. Vietnam is from 1958 through 1973. And this warrant officer's tunic here is a gentleman from Alameda that's been in the National Guard for over 20 years and attained the rank of lieutenant colonel, but during this Desert Storm, because they had too many lieutenant colonels, he had to go down to the rank of warrant officer, and he and I went to officer candidate school together in 1965. His last name is Bolton. And this is a poster of the famous John Wayne in the movie Green Beret, and these are all patches that people collect from various brigades, divisions, and regiments. This is a Navy tunic that is the tunic of Lou Baca, who was a bosun On a number of ships, he served on the USS Enterprise and quite a few other ones, and was I believe, 21 or 22-year veteran. These are some uniforms that were worn by Bob Nelson of Albany, and he served 2 terms in the Army in Vietnam. This is a nice display here of some United States Marine Corps items, and Desert Storm, some boots. On the left here, what we see is 2 Iraqi helmets. They are very similar to the U.S. one. We believe they used our steel pot as a form and made them out of a very thick, heavy plastic. There's an Iraqi first aid kit hanging right there. Something that would be a nice little catch on the battlefield. This is a full bird colonel uniform, United States Marine Corps. It is dated 1958 and is the full dinner dress uniform. And the only thing that's missing is a hat, but it has the cummerbund, suspenders, and so on. And it is a wonderful piece of work for a uniform for this particular colonel. He must have been in a high position where he would be invited to many formal functions. Now, these 4 uniforms here are of all the academies. We have West Point on the left, then comes Annapolis, the Air Force Academy, and then the Coast Guard Academy. And above that is the United States Marine Corps flag inside standard with the fringe. And a poster which is very, very famous to most people, "I Want You, United States Army." The Air Force tunic is something that belongs to Larry Pierrick of the Back to the 40s store. And when we were putting this on display, we never noticed this before, but we looked at the name tag on the inside, and it says J. Doolittle. And we think possibly it could be perhaps a grandson of the famous Jimmy Doolittle, General Doolittle. We're going to try to research that. And let's see, we have another flag kind of hidden in the back there. That is a Army Artillery Brigadier General's flag, inside standard, which would be behind his desk or so. The ROTC cadet is of Alameda High School. This was a uniform that was worn in 1961, battalion commander of the Alameda ROTC unit, and all the medals and the sword. And inside you'll see an acorn, and it shows the picture of the cadet and a picture of the sponsor. The sponsor's responsibility was to wear all of the awards and medals of the cadet, Block A, and these are shooting medals, which are National Rifle Association, and certificates, and even a couple of scorecards from a shooting range. And this completes our display. And what we've done is gone all the way around the room. There's a Navy Annapolis banner with the goat. And we're going to finish off here where we started with the United States flag and the bunting. By the way, this flag behind this uniform is a rare flag. It's only 49 stars. I'm gonna And that is the end of our display at the Alameda Museum. Today is the 24th of November, 1999, and we hope that you have enjoyed our display for this entire month of November through December 11th.